All right, welcome everybody. Guys, if you want to unmute yourself, or I guess leave yourself muted, but take your cameras off so we know there's people on the other side. Welcome everybody to our final webinar of the year. We did it. You did nothing, but I am so excited for this. And this one specifically because we planned this one last. Specifically, it is kind of my bread and butter and the thing I'm most interested in kind of ag production, and something I feel as technology takes off, improvements in soil tests, GPS collars for cows, that this is really something that in the future I think is going to take off. So awesome tonight. We have this is the highest attended webinar we've had yet. So we've still got 50 some people left to come on, but we'll I can yammer away here for a bit while people are filing in. All right, so to get rolling, best question tonight gets a Covers and Co hat again. We have a fresh stock of hats, so put your questions in the Q&A, not the chat, please. So you want questions answered? We kind of anticipate there's going to be lots. It's a new enough practice, and there's not a pile of farms that are doing it. So put your questions in there. The guys have kind of been given a bit of a timeline, 10 to 15 minutes. We're going to try and keep it short because we're anticipating questions at the end. In fact, we've already had lots of questions come in. And want to promote one of our dealers, Phil Burney's got a bull sale coming up on April 10th. He's got 33 red bulls, 5 black Anguses, and 21 open heifers to sell. So check out Phil's website, www.wraz.ca. I think Phil said it maybe isn't quite up yet, but there's a bit of time to the sale. So check out Phil. The Covers and Co team, we can vouch for Phil. He's a great guy, awesome fellow to talk cows with. And so yeah, we want to support kind of the people that helped get us here, and keep some of our money local, and supporting these farms that are doing the right things. So this is our farm panel tonight. I'm going to introduce each one of them kind of before they come in. But what I am going to do now is something almost unheard of on this webinar. I am actually going to try and sell some seeds. So bear with me here. As you can tell, it's very dim in here. We're candle lit. Manitoba Hydro cut the power because we've been spending way too much time on webinars and not enough time selling seeds. So forgive me. Just jokes. But just want to remind everyone, seeding time's coming around. Our full season cover, we are humbled to say we're kind of getting to the end. We're going to start blending actually any day now. So we have limited tons available. So talk to a dealer, go on our website. There's information right there. Our sales guy, Owen, sitting in the corner here. We posted his number and not mine. Cough, cough. But also we talk about full season cover a lot because plant diversity is kind of our shtick, but we also have other options out there. We have a cool season cover and a warm season cover for $50 and $45. So farms are thinking of going a different route or have different uses for different blends. Yeah, we have some options. So check us out, coversandco.ca. Much appreciated. Hopefully that wasn't too painful. So I'll get the ball rolling here. Yeah, we've got a few more participants coming yet, but snoozy lose. Also, we record these as people have started to figure out. So thank you for coming on and watching us live. Let's get rolling. I'm going to start the show with my full season cover. This one's parts of 2018, 2019, and 2020. But this is kind of the idea, my idea of a full season cover crop and true plant diversity. We actually want to cut back rates on certain species so we get a result that looks like this. And that's lots of different plant architecture, lots of different plants capturing photosynthetic energy and pumping liquid carbon into the soil surface. And that's what stimulates this biology, creates a healthy soil environment. And that's why we can grow plants like this without synthetic fertilizers, and we don't see any mineral deficiencies. So once we stimulate that biology, this field has no synthetic fertilizer, and what is that? 3 days later, we can do a jump like this. But that is only possible because of plant diversity, for the simple fact that if we're looking at a conventional soil test, Well, this is some pretty haggard soil. So 6 parts per million phos, really high pH, 7.8, and an organic matter of 2.7. But what makes this possible is exactly what you're looking at here. Thank you, Cotswold Seeds, for this beautiful image. We reference it lots because it really speaks to what's going on, which is different above ground biomass architecture, different below ground biomass architecture, different root exits, stimulating different biology, accessing different minerals at different times of the year. So it's just, we have access to so much more soil at different times of the year and can maximize that photosynthetic energy. And then I talk about it lots, 96% of a plant, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, sunlight, and water. And if we just, this is how we maximize that system and maximize those minerals. So back to our full season cover, we graze ours. This is just a picture of kind of an ideal result. I think this is some pretty nice above ground residue. And really what we try and do on our farm, and this is what we're going to talk about all throughout the presentation tonight, is how to properly manage full season covers and plant diversity. So on our farm, what we try to achieve is it's a soil amendment. Of course, the grazing is nice, but really we want to get this biomass on the soil surface to protect the soil, slow drip of balanced carbon and nitrogen to the soil biology, and that really feeds the regrowth and crops for the future. So I often get asked, how many animals do I need to achieve this result? So that is 20,000 pounds of animal per acre per day. And what does that look like? Something like this. So a 3-acre paddock, roughly, of course, and it it depends on when the next baseball game is, or if we have a social outing, how big the paddocks are. But what we want to try and to achieve is 20,000 pounds of animals, no matter how much the move or how many times we're going to move, but that many animals on 1 acre per day. And that gives us our ideal residue that we're trying to achieve. And this is these cows, but from a drone, this gives you a good idea of what we're looking at. You can see the regrowth starting on the right side, and then the paddocks that were grazed, and that residue that is turned brown, and then of course the green starting to grow again. So this is the residue. This is those white paddocks that you see. That's actually probably ideal timing on our grazing. So it's just, that's what they look like a couple days after, and you're going to see lots of pictures of what residue looks like under different management systems with the guys we have. So talking about growth and plant diversity. So this is the last paddock we ended up grazing. On the left is my quad, and on the right is still my quad, just 4 days later. So really you can see a nice balance of plants, different leaf architectures, creating that massive amount of biomass on 6 parts per million phosphorus. So I often get asked, of course, how much regrowth do we get after our initial graze? This was 2018. So 2018, 2019, we had good moisture in the summers, and on our early grazed paddocks, we were getting substantial amounts of biomass. Now, I always tell people you can't make silk purse out of a pig's ear. It has to rain. So, and Stu, you're sitting across from me. 2020, we grazed full season cover crops, and we had no rain in August and September, and regrowth was minimal.
It was tough to get much of anything. Yeah, no,
so yeah, so it's just conditions depending, Mother Nature depending, as anything we do in agriculture. So some years we get regrowth that looks like this, other years we get regrowth that looks like this. So just depends on the year, but residue always helps keeping the soil protected, so there's no or limited amounts of evaporation. And what we find is what that residue does is, if you guys, anyone has been on this webinar before, you know I always talk about carbon and nitrogen, or energy and protein, but really what it is it's providing the soil biology with balanced energy source to create stable soil aggregates, and it shows up right here, which is water infiltration. So we've done this test, I don't know how many times on full season ground, dozens for sure, and basically on our land, in this geographical area and on our soil type, we see a 10x improvement in water infiltration. So what that means really is just we have stable soil aggregates, we have pore space in the soil, and we have a home and an environment where biology can function and gain access to all those minerals. So what that means for the following year after we graze a full season cover crop. So these are some trials we did left to right. It's buckwheat, red fife wheat, Brandon wheat, barley, and then the rest of the field was oats. And we did several different trials throughout, but no synthetic fertilizer at all. And we had some bird damage, we had some wind damage, but we combined the oats, no fungicide, in-crop herbicide, but there was no pesticide, no synthetic fertilizer, and we were yielding over 100 bushels an acre on the oats. And I'm excited to say we're partnering on a project this year with General Mills and the university to trial exactly this. So after either grazing a full season or taking it the first growth for winter forage, going back in the next year and testing how much we can reduce fertilizer and maximize profitability. So it's a very exciting time. It's nice that kind of mainstream researchers are starting to pick up on this. I honestly think you can learn more if you're interested in this practice from the farms that are on the webinar tonight. But for sure, it's nice for the conventional agriculture world to start recognizing that, you know, there's some neat benefits and some good ideas that kind of the soil healthers or the regen farmers are putting into practice. So without further ado, Rob, if you want to turn your camera on and turn your mic on. Rob Wunder from Foam Lake, Saskatchewan. We were just talking beforehand. Rob, your first cover crop was 2014, same year as mine. You're kind of a crazy bugger just like me, so I'm looking forward to this. So just a reminder, Rob, of course, just a reminder, after I went 8 minutes over, we'll try and keep it to 10 or 15 minutes. I'll butt in with questions, but have at her, Haas, the floor is yours. Oh, and Rob, I got the clicker, so if you want me to change slides, just say next slide, but I'll try and keep up with you.
Sure, sounds great. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight about what we're doing out on our farm. We farm just south of Foam Lake, Saskatchewan, family farm, multi-generational, cow-calf mix with grain acres as well. Some years we get lots of rain, some years we get very little. So kind of like everybody else here on the call, I'm sure. So if you want to go to my first slide. So, you know, what got me into this whole soil health movement and soil health, you know, there's many reasons. Financially, I was tired of playing the big, you know, spending big money on everything. And then I realized, well, this is a great way to feed a cow. And so Gabe Brown, he speaks lots about revenue per acre from grazing cover crops, and he has some pretty big numbers. And so, you know, how do we capture some of this? And so what I did was, you know, I didn't come up with any of this. I don't think. I just glean it from other people and make it work to our system. But anyways, sorry,
I said same thing. I don't do anything original.
Yeah, we all just, that's the beauty of this regenerative agriculture. Everybody's so open, and we wouldn't be here today without people in front of us sharing so openly. So it's great to have that opportunity to give back.
I agree that's why I'm sitting here too, Rob. I've stolen enough ideas. It's time to share what's worked and what hasn't.
There you go. Yeah, and so I just drew out the kind of when our forage is lower production, and how can we supplement that with a cover crop or with something that's going to improve soil and feed cattle. And so when you start taking away winter feeding days, you start to really add some profitability into the operation. And not only that, I love the smell of fresh cut hay, and I love the smell of silage, but I have a young family, and I just don't want to spend all my time in a tractor anymore. So just trying to juggle that all together. And so I highly recommend doing this, and everybody's operation is going to be a little different depending on when you calve and so on. But just to get an idea of what you're trying to fill in with the cover crop, just to add, because growing a cover crop is great and I enjoy it, but you have to there's got to be dollars and cents going together with it all, or else it's just going to end up being a sour point, I think. So we do try. I have been working on trying to get a relay crop to go, and I see all my acres are multi mixes of different things, and that presents some challenges. But I've moving forward. We have a disc drill that allows us to adjust our openings and stuff. So we're going to be interseeding and doing a lot of different things. So this cover crop here, this was taken in 2019. This is just cleaned out the shed, threw everything at it, and we had enough forage that we decided we better take it for feed, keep our weeds under control with, not that there was lots of weeds, but just to keep everything running smoothly, cut it for forage, put it up in a bale, and then and then you come to the next picture here, you'll see that the regrowth that we had, and this was taken about 35, 40 days later. And what we did was we allowed that to go right to frost, and then we come back in. So that field was or is in organic management. Some of the farm is organic, some isn't. And that one there has been organic and hasn't seen inputs for many, many, many years. And just animal impact, I guess. And so what we did, we got 5 bales to the acre, 2.5 dry, 2.5 silage. And then we come back and grazed that in November, and we took off about 45 cow days per acre. So that field owed us absolutely nothing, and that was great nutrition for our livestock. So if you want to switch to the next one there.
Looks like there's some cow feed here.
Just a little bit, yeah. And when we stood out in that field, we did a little field day. You could feel above the canopy was quite warm, and below it was, and your feet were cool. It was so awesome, so neat to see that. Rob,
I got an interesting story about corn vetch. When you stick a probe, no matter what the temperature, you get like that thick vetch residue. Stick a temperature probe in the ground, and you'll find more times than not 70 Fahrenheit, the ideal temperature for biological activity. Is that interesting?
That's very, yeah, it is. It is. So
maybe
what we're looking at,
me that are interested in that. I don't know.
Well, I think I know a few others that are pretty interested in it. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's going on?
Well, that was a mistake. And it turned out okay. We turned Grandpa loose in the drill to seed the hairy vetch into the corn. And that's 6 pounds to the acre. And so you can see the headlands are missing. That's because it was right by the road and everybody was concerned what it looked like. So we got to cut that because it's a weedy mess. And then we get into it and, oh, hang on. Actually, I think that's what we planted. It's what my dad told me. So we left it stand, and that vetch was green all the way through into March. March 10th, I took 10 bricks, got a reading of 10 bricks on a refractometer out there. Wow. We averaged over 250 cow days per acre on that. It worked back to 55 cents per cow per day, because that's just an open pollinated corn. If you took the fertilizer that we saved the following year, we're looking at 35 cents a cow per day. We cut our fertilizer right back pretty much to nothing on that when we went into that, and we see no yield loss from that. And that field to this day, it still produces very well, and that was 2015, I guess, that year.
Rob, just to give some context, we're also going to do some trials this summer with the university and General Mills on corn vetch population and spacing. But on our 60-inch trials last year, we did biomass tests on the vetch, and then just literally, we didn't send away any samples or anything. Just looked up the mineral breakdown of vegetative vetch. And I will have next year in our 60-inch corn, somewhere between 200 and 300 pounds residual nitrogen going into next year. So it's like there is a massive opportunity. I know people get sick of me talking about corn intercropping, but the opportunity is absolutely massive. And that's why I'm not going to shut up about it.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great fit.
But we do have to shut up about it.
Okay, we'll head over to the next slide. So this was a early seeded spring rye and forage pea mix, and I'm always trying to not waste sunlight and keep a living root in that soil as long as possible. And I was just trying to build armor with this. So what I actually did was come in, let the rye get to flower, come in and terminate it with cows. And that's the closest I've ever been to an organic no-till situation. The gentleman I was going to rent the drill from changed his mind and things kind of went sideways. So I didn't actually get anything out there after. And this is what it looked like here with the cattle. And this wasn't high stock density. That it was about 150,000 pounds per acre. I should note now we run on any given day, we could be over 1.5 million pounds per acre on any given piece, and all the way down to 2,000 pounds. I'm so adaptive that I think I know I make everybody else's head spin in the operation and hard to gauge and even myself sometimes. But I guess I didn't include it, but the reason I did it, or the reason I believe so highly in stock density and as a tool is because I've seen some crazy results from it. So
I think actually I saw a photo from your farm from Blaine Jarvis showed the difference between, I think it was like 2,000 pounds animal impact versus something crazy like 400,000. And the difference in the color of the topsoil was amazing.
Yeah, that was a 50,000 to a 1 million pound per acre comparison that I did. That totally changed the game for me. And now chatting with Ryan Boyd, looking forward at doing more of a total grazing and trying my hand at that. So yeah, there's a lot of power to it, and it's, nobody really can fully understand it, but you can really increase organic matter in a hurry and speed up the biological process through that. So if you want to jump to the next one. So the picture that just popped up here is, some oats is a cool season cover that I sowed in on like the 20th of July after the silage was up. You can see that white bag back there. That's a pile of sweet clover silage, and it's going to graze that pile, and it would have worked if the silage would have had quality. It turned out they wouldn't eat it, and it was because it was poorer quality than straw by the time we got it up that year. I agree with what you said, Joe. If it rains, we can see some amazing things, and if it doesn't rain, we're not going to see that. And this was taken October 20th, and it was still nice and green, even with the snow on. And I didn't seed. I was doing trials at this time. This was 2016 or 2017, and I didn't seed the whole field to cover. I left a strip out, and when I combined it, like was running an 8820 Titan 2, so they're not too high tech, but it was a noticeable yield difference. Like, I mean, it was like, well, the field's actually, it was a drier year the next year, and well, it's yielding better than I thought. And then when I got into it on the other side, I was straight cutting, and when I got to into that other piece, it was like, wow, I guess there's definitely something to this. And actually, I pretty much don't do trials anymore. I'm pretty sold on the idea. So
no, hang on. Don't let a university hear you say that.
No, well, sorry.
All you have is information and anecdotal evidence. I can't.
That's right.
How can I believe you?
Yeah, no, it's
just for goods.
Yeah. So actually, that picture that example we're talking about with the stock density, this is where it was done. And this field here, like, this is a biannual, so there's fall rye, sweet clover, hairy vetch, trying to get like a year and a half out of my cover crop. The year before wasn't very good because the fall rye, I seeded that like 45 pounds to the acre, and the allelopathic effect played havoc with a bunch of my multi-species that were in it.
Mhm.
and I ran out of rye and on a little piece, and it was really nice cover crop where there wasn't rye. So, but I made up for it the following year, and so this is in the spring, and this was early or middle. Pardon me. This was towards the end of June already, and the goal was to have that kind of growth a little earlier, and we're we're always trying to gauge it and rest perennials, and there's a lot of things that go into into the system, and how do we make this kind of fit so that we can graze. This year we're going to shoot for 40 days on feed. Now that's a pretty big change. We've there's been years that a group of cows maybe has done that, but and I'm talking not talking about bale grazing, but I will be grazing silage piles again, I think. So just to give a little context to that, but
For sure.
just trying to not waste sunlight if at all possible. And after we're done grazing this, I seeded that down to oats and perennials, and actually we dried out and nothing came. So I did it again the next year, and it worked out all right.
If at first
So
you don't succeed,
that's right.
I tell you, I've not succeeded a lot.
That's right. If everybody, if we quit when it got tough, we wouldn't have canola. So that's just something to keep in mind as as we move forward down this path. So this is a oat field out in the distance. I didn't realize the picture was that poor, but you can't see it too clearly. But there is hairy vetch, Italian ryegrass, purple top turnips in that, and we seeded that. I seeded that mix because it was dry already when we got to seeding it, and we're a little worried about everything. So with that, we had lots of options, whether it's graze it, combine it, cut it, different things. Obviously, most profitable would be to cut it or to combine it, pardon me, and take the cash crop and then utilize the residue. And that's what we ended up doing. And the picture that you're probably wondering what kind of silage or gross thing that is, that was what the chaff piles looked like. And so we ended up with really good chaff pile grazing and got an extra 45 days per acre or every acre fed 45 cows for a day. And so, whatever number you put on it, you can put whatever you like in there, whether it's a buck, whether it's 250, whether it's whatever. It adds up, and even if you say, well, it costs you nothing, it's not really a value. Okay, but that month that I didn't feed those 200 or those 180 cows, we stockpiled bales, and those bales are coming in handy this year when the forage production was a little down last year. So you're adding resiliency, whether or not there's actually dollars hitting your bank, right?
I always talk about it with well, just about everyone. You get those months, November, December. I mean, I know the crap that comes out of the back of my combine is not worth 6 cents a pound, but the stuff in the hay, in the hay yard and my winter forage is. So it's like, where does that number fall? I know it's not 6 cents, but my cows aren't eating 6-cent hay, and it's on the field and it didn't cost me a damn thing. So it's like, I know what you're saying. It's not, I don't feel rich when I tell people like, oh, my cow's in my oat straw, but I must be making something.
Well, and now as life is changing, I look at things I can eliminate doing or do less of, or how can I be more effective with my time? And if you're not baling it, putting it in a bale, hauling the bales off the field, or moving them and then feeding them back to a cow, there's a whole level of time and we can always make more money. You can never make more time, right? So to me, that it's becoming a real important thing. Like if I'm doing something, I'm doing it at wide open throttle because I want to get it done. Which is kind of probably why we spend so much time fixing. But anyway,
Think of that valuable time you get to spend with loved ones, dirty and underneath the tractor. Like that's time you can't get back, man. Rob, that is probably the time comments, probably a good place to leave it, but that is extremely well said. Yeah, they make literally the Keene prints more money every day, but they ain't printing time. I already got questions rolling in for you, Rob, but I'm a little annoyed with our next presenter, Andy Keene. He on our pre-webinar, Andy shows up, and my good friend Stu and I played baseball on the same team. It's been 15 years since Andy and us played baseball against each other, and the first words out of his mouth were snide baseball comments. And then now we're on live, and I want to roast him, but he brought an innocent bystander to the table. What's the deal, Andy?
Well played, Joe. Well played. Gee whiz. Hey, I thought I was going to have the upper hand here to start. Well, I guess we're done with the baseball thing, but I
am the moderator here. Only I say when it's done. But tell us about your farm, and we'll get into it.
I'll leave that one alone. First thing I want to do, though, is I want to give a shout out to you guys, to Joe and Travis and Owen and Mark, for what you guys are doing. Pretty amazing go you guys got happening there. So good work. Keep it up. We're on board here. We're enjoying it. So we're a mixed farm here, grain and cattle. We've got a small Pioneer Seed Agency as well that we like to add to the mix here of madness. Generational farm. We farm with my parents as well. We're at that stage where we're having a lot of fun as a family. We're doing our best to try and figure out what the next years ahead are going to look like. And pretty excited that cover crops is going to be part of that on our farm.
I got a feeling the years ahead look a lot like this.
Yeah. So here it is. So this is number one helper beside me. Number two right here, Grace and William. This is Willie came with me and he says, Dad, I'm going to run the seeder today. And I was kind of like, yeah, okay. Well, man, I'm going to be out of a job soon because this kid just right onto the whole buttons and the hydraulics and everything. So yeah, this is the fun right here. This is the part where cover crops to me is going to be important for our farm and changing the way that we do things, because family's everything. And we're really trying to figure out how to, work smarter and not harder. That's for darn sure. So
and just I want people to take note of in your presentation, the valve, like I without sounding too hippie-ish, there's something about plant diversity and like the symbiotic of it all, where I find myself when I'm crop checking, I spend 10 times as much time in the full season cover, because there's insects, there's all sorts of different stuff happening, but you have the most you had the most gorgeous spot to grow this stuff. All of your pictures come from the valley that you guys farm in, and it is just a gorgeous spot. So I wanted people to take note of the surroundings that you guys kind of get to farm in and be in.
Well, appreciate that, Joe. There is no doubt around here. We're blessed beyond belief, and it's got nothing to do with money. We're lucky to be farmers, and we're lucky to farm where we do. There's no doubt about that. So here it is. Here's a part of our herd. One day we were moving them, and I think this is after a nice fresh rain. And so just made for a beautiful picture. That right there is, that helps pull your socks on in the morning when you know what you're going to do that day with these cattle. And I'm beginning to love the cattle more and more all the time. It's
Even
been more
when they break the fence.
Yeah, right. It's been more my wife's love than mine, but what we're doing, how we're diversifying the farm is really changing that. And we're having a lot of fun here. So here it is. This is, I believe, July 23rd is this picture. This is William here. I think this is the second day in the full season cover. I was just scrolling while Rob was talking, talk about symbiosis. And one comment that you made, Rob, that I took note of, and you guys talked about it a bit. If it rains, we can see amazing things. Well, this is what's so cool about this full season cover. It didn't rain. We were so dry here this year, and how this grew. I looked at this on 20 days earlier in my pictures on my phone, and I thought, man, this is not going to work. And we hit symbiosis and this stuff just took off. It blew our mind. Obviously no fertility, and we're greenhorns to this. So this was
just to touch on your point, Andy. I look back through my pictures too. I was standing where Willie was standing, I think on July 16th, and it was it just speaks to like kind of, I guess, experience in the plant diversity realm. But when I walked in that full season, I knew it was one of the most the best even emergence and best plant diversity that I had seen. So without trying to sound cocky, I knew you guys were going to have a beast on your hands because you just had such an even crop and perfect diversity.
Yeah, exactly. We were very lucky with how this worked out, even like I said, with minimal rain. So
Andy, I'll just interrupt you there. Do you just you were saying beforehand when we were chatting, you kind of had some numbers, like the size of the grazing area and how many cows, and just kind of your strategy that you went with. Like Rob was talking about a million pounds, but you guys went about it a little bit differently. And kind of the neat thing is nobody's right, nobody's wrong. It's what works for each farm.
Absolutely. And we, like I said, we're greenhorns to this. We're so excited that we tried it. We basically let the cows kind of tell us, how it was going to work. And, we got pretty well versed with rotational grazing, fencing, and a nice square field for once, finally. We just kind of moved by when the cows were ready. We had about 90 pair out here, cows and calves. They were out on this 60-acre field for about 35 days. And I'll say three of the most measurable things that I could talk about on this full season cover. The first one was our perennial pastures. Like, we were dry, and our perennial pastures have never looked better because we gave them that break right in the heat of the grazing season, which was awesome. Our soil fertility, we'll touch on that a little bit. We've got some soil tests to show you that are too good to be true. We're going to retest them. And the third most measurable thing, right, that I will say is how much fun we had as a family moving our cattle. The natural, insects and just the cool, you guys talked about the cool environment, how comfortable it was to be down there in the evening, moving the fence. Just eating the peas. Eating the peas. Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that. So,
Andy, I'll speak to your point because I know like I was saying, we've got a good crowd on tonight, and I'm sure people are hearing those numbers. Rob was talking about a million pounds or 1.5 million pounds, and they look at me and think I'm crazy moving a fence every day, and they think, well, Andy Keene's not doing anything. He's got time to move a fence every day. And I know, Stu, you're the same. But it really is, unless you do it and you realize, it's actually 40 minutes that you look forward to every single day to get down there. It really is just a different experience than conventional or conventional production methods kind of offer you.
Can't agree more. It was like you looked forward to that. We were kind of sad when it was done. It was a very special.
You get into a routine, and it's not a routine like, I'm going to fork out the barn. You're walking in residue this high. The cows are calm, complacent with you even being there. Once they're moved, you can hear them crunching and stomping and insects. I know I'm romanticizing full season cover crops, but damn it, I don't care. Yeah. Also, like, how can you not romanticize it? This is the nicest picture I've seen all year.
Well, the cows are damn happy. There's no denying that too.
So Andy, we got a picture of your drill, but I see a canola field in the background. But why don't you just talk about what your plan is for next year, what you have set up, and then we got your soil test next. We'll dive into a bit.
Sure. So this year we did as far as what we did on our farm, full season cover was probably the most dramatic thing. Another thing that we've switched to, we are the corn silage chopping bill was huge around here, and we said enough of that. We actually let the cows graze it where it's standing. We did a bunch of inter-row seeding as well. dry, so we didn't get the best results. We're absolutely on that again next year. The corn is so versatile for us. Actually, we ended up being long on feed. We combined on January 13th, actually, we combined another 40 acres of our grazing corn, which of course is light because it was a later hybrid, but it's still marketable corn, and I see it's $6 today. So it gave us some options. So we're going to do inter-row seeding again in our corn. We're going to do full season cover. I'm going to try some companion cropping in our oats for next year is kind of the three things we're thinking of.
What's your plan for this specific land, Andy, like where you had the full season cover for next year?
So our full season is, we're going to start getting into I think, like this picture shows kind of our valley plateau. Just to the north of this is our main feedlot area, which hopefully is not going to be used anymore on this farm other than for, a little bit of herd management stuff. But these cattle are, my wife and I just said it the other day, maybe they're never going to go in the pen again, which is super exciting. We haven't started calving yet. This is year one of going to April calving. Just stoked about that. So we're going to start rotating between our grazing corn and our full season cover. And our intention is to absolutely grow our grazing corn intercrop combination, which is going to be mainly vetch this year, by the way. We're going to try and do that on a very reduced synthetic fertilizer rate. And the soil test will kind of touch on that a little bit. We're going to retest this ground here.
You touched on it, Andy. Just explain what's going on here. And then this is the canola. Well, Pierre, why don't we'll touch on the full season, and then I'll have a discussion about what we found just with the soil test we've done after the full season cover. And
sure. So this was a big stab for us even to do a cover crop, because we're a traditional, more grain, more acres, more profit type farm on the conventional farming side. So this is traditionally a 185 acre field. To the west on that previous picture was our canola, the canola mono, the previous soil test here. This is the cover crop right on the same field. So traditionally this field has been farmed the exact same for many years. And our nitrate levels there are through the roof. We're going to retest here actually on Friday. Lucas is coming to retest this for us, just to kind of get some measurables again. But I'm 110% confident that we're going to be able to grow our grazing corn on this full season cover field with the reduced synthetic rate. What that's going to be yet, we haven't determined, but this is just one of the really exciting things. We're happy that we grazed this. No negatives towards cutting it, because man, we talked about that. There was such an amazing amount of biomass, but that's our plan going forward anyway, is to try and rotate between a full season cover and then our winter food source being our grazing corn with our inter-row mix.
So I don't know if anyone picked out the alarming number on this, but I see, what is that, pounds nitrogen to 24 inches, 288 pounds.
Yeah.
So before you guys sell us out a full season cover and graze it all, let me tell you what we normally see. To be perfectly honest, when we went down this path, we thought we were going to see something like this. All these soluble minerals. Truth be told, we didn't, but we just looked into a little bit further of the soil testing methods. And really what soil testing is doing is giving you a snapshot of what it was like in that facet of time, right then. So it gives you a good idea of what's going on, but really what happens in a full season cover crop, not just in our field, but just the plant diversity in nature is if you pulled a soil probe in a healthy bush with trees and plant diversity and some animal integration, you're going to find almost no soluble nutrients on that soil test. So you're going to find some, but soluble nutrients don't make a whole pile of sense to Mother Nature because they can leach away. 288 pounds of leachable away nitrogen doesn't make sense to Mother Nature's perfect blueprint. So what her plan is generally is to store all these minerals in a balanced C to N root. There I am talking about that energy source again, but what that does is it's slow root decay, breaking down, offering those captured minerals to the following crop throughout the year. And that's Mother Nature's blueprint summed up. So we generally do not see results like this soil test. Like we might double soluble nitrogen, double soluble phosphorus, but that might be from a level of 20 pounds phos to 40 or 20 pounds of nitrogen to 55. So it's good. It's good you're getting it done again, Andy. And I think you're sold on it anyway. You believe in the concept, but just to be totally truthful with people is we do not see soil tests that look a lot like this. But the idea is that this used to be our goal, but it's not now. It's like we have to trust our eyes. We have to understand the biomass that's there and what that biomass is going to break down to the following year and offer our crop. So it does take another level of management, right? You can't just look at a soil test and go take it down to the local co-op and get them to give you a recommendation. But it's a little like moving fences. That sounds scary, but it's actually the most fun. I mean, Andy, I bet you the reason why you haven't settled on a nitrogen number is because you don't know.
No, totally don't. And like I say, we talked about whether we should even show this slide, obviously. And the message is simply this: completely confident that we can absolutely grow our corn with reduced synthetic rates next year. And the goal is to continue that process. What that's going to look like is yet to be determined, but we're sure enjoying the process here so far.
Well, and here I am talking about time, and sorry, Stu, we won't cut you back too far. But I mean, if you have animals, and I guess I'm combining what you and Rob are saying, and Stu, you're doing 6 wide row corn with vetch, you're doing full season cover crops. So we're kind of 4 of us doing, see potential in these same type of crops. But if you've got livestock and you've got grain, and we can grow, corn, say for a cash crop, or what Rob was talking about with the oats, and we can get grazing days out of that land, return all those minerals back, go in with a full season cover crop, stimulate that biology, and come back into, another cash crop. We've harvested 2 grain crops. We haven't used hardly anything as far as fertilizer, and our system is set up for years to follow because we've just put the correct energy sources in place and kept plants growing and feeding that soil biology. So it's so, Andy, I mean, I can hear the excitement in your voice. I'm excited about this. Like I've never been more excited to farm. Yeah,
the future looks bright for sure.
Keep going and then talk about your cedar here.
Yeah, so this I got to make this loud and clear. This is a shout out to Joe and Daniel Peters, Creekside Land and Livestock.
And they're on. They heard that.
Oh, they did. Okay, yeah. So this is Joe's winter project here, and I thank these guys a lot because they actually came and helped us with our inter-row seeding because, like I said, the silage bill was getting big, and we decided we wanted to try something different. So they came and they did some inter-row seeding for us with this unit. And of course, we didn't get the best results. We were just a little bit too dry. Our timing is something we're going to try and master going forward as well. We maybe should have been in there a little bit sooner, but of course we were trying to find the right timeline so we weren't competitive with the corn as well. But if anything, I would almost say I'm not as worried about that as anymore. We're trying to figure out more of a balanced ration so that we are just corn grazing with the inter-row, whatever that might be. Hopefully a great establishment of vetch for next year. But anyway, this is Joe and Daniel Peters' rig here, which is very helpful for us. We're going to give it a go again next year too.
Cool. Well, you got any final words, Andy? We've got questions rolling in for you too. So you're sticking around for question time, and
I'll be here. Yep. Let's keep it rolling. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. This is my favorite picture in the world, Stu. The best day ever.
That's pretty happy.
So this is my very good friend, Darcy Stewart. We've kind of gone down this soil path or soil health path together. It's nice that we can finally sit across the table. Stu's wife is very close to giving birth to their fourth child. So yeah, if Stu gets up and leaves, that's what he's probably doing, I'm assuming.
Well, just leave it, yeah.
Or he's sick and fed up of me, and that's happened before. We'll be friends. So Stu, talk about your farm. We're just going to chat back and forth, and then we'll give him some questions. So have at her, bud.
Okay. Darcy Stewart from Clearwater, Manitoba here. This is 3 of my kids. We got another one on the way. My wife's not in this picture because she's taking the photo. I farm with my dad and mom and brother and his wife and their little guy. We're mixed farm. We got grain and cattle, small feedlot for the winter time. And yeah, 2018, Joe, he showed me his grazing his full season cover crop. And I didn't believe him the first year. So I went over and looked at it again in 2019. And then finally, 2020, we started growing the full season cover to graze.
I'm reminded, I see Trav put your guys' website. So I want to do a couple more plugs. Andy, can you unmute yourself? So this is Stewart South Shore Meats. You guys are direct marketing beef. And I have to say, they do an excellent job on social media and everything. So check them out. Andy, whose shirt am I wearing? I know you guys can't see it, but
yeah, right. So you got my stepbrother Brooks Keene and Paul Thorlifson in Manitou. That Towns Apparel.
Yeah,
cool.
so they've got the streets, the railways. I know, I wish you guys could see it, but rivers, and they're really cool shirts. It's one of my favorite shirts. So this was our last webinar of the night. So I wanted to throw it on and give them a shout out. And of course I forgot. So anyway, check them out as well. Yeah, they got a lot of hats, posters, stuff like that. So some really cool stuff. I wanted to give them a shout out. Sorry, Stu.
That's fine. Yeah, kind of like what Ron and Andy have been talking about all night here. It's my family they're young and kind of just, we're always felt so busy. We had a feedlot, we were feeding all summer, and last year when COVID kind of all happened, we had a bunch of cattle in the feedlot that weren't going to go anywhere, or we were going to take a loss on. So we thought, well, what the hell, we'll try grazing them. And so yeah, did a lot of experiments last year, and the beautiful thing about it was, yeah, we got to spend a lot more time with my kids. And
I had a fun thought. Because I remember when you guys were going to graze 250 steers, is that right? Yeah. So you were thinking like how are we going to manage these fence moves and stuff like that? Just talking about a mindset shift where you were going to do 2 hours of chores regardless. So like the moving of the fence replaced it, but it really is a mindset shift where you're like, I got to go build a fence. It's going to take forever, but it's like you were going to do chores anyway.
Exactly. And again, the cool thing is, like my son Vaughn there, he gets sick of riding in the tractor with me. So, he does chores every once in a while now. But if I'm doing that all summer, he was going to stop. Every single time I moved the fence, he was there with me. If not, the other two. It was really turned into a family outing pretty much every time we moved the cattle. So he's a big kid for his age. He's only 4 there, but that's early July, I believe it was. And we're getting pretty good growth, even with very little rain. Well, the rain that we did get was like 3 inches at one time. So
I did not, when we went down this webinar path, I thought we were just going to be talking about production ideas. I can't tell you how happy I am that the panelists that we've had on, we were talking about it too in the bale grazing and dry hay, that every single panelist, just like here tonight, talked about quality of life when making decisions. Because we talked about it. They make more money every day, and people go broke every day, and people get rich every day. But time it's just, how many people do you talk to that wished they could go back 30 years and spend more time and take their kids fencing? It was not something I planned to bring up. I am so glad you guys brought it up and the guys the other night, because that really is what we're doing it for, is quality of damn life.
And you talk about unintended consequences. This is definitely one of them. Like I was not expecting to, when
No, you
everything-
thought moving fence was going to be a pain in
stressful.
the ass.
I had anxiety last spring thinking about how we were going to get this all done.
Oh yeah.
To the point where you kind of get panicky about it, but everything just kind of fell into place. And again, it was quality time, not it wasn't work.
Yeah, I know.
So
I tell people I spent more time with my cows this winter than when I was starting a tractor and feeding them every day, just because I kind of miss them.
Yeah, and you get to experience different parts of your land that you wouldn't necessarily see from the tractor, right? So
and something special, I know I'm the time Nazi and here I am talking, but something special about plant diversity is, I mean, you had low spots in your field that looked totally different 30 yards away where it went up on a ridge.
Yeah.
And I mean, just to stimulate that thought in your brain of why that's happening and to look at a field a different way, not from a sprayer, not from a tractor, but to be right there and think about it and understand. It's just such a positive experience and probably part of the reason why we enjoy being out there so much.
Well, they're not afraid to ask a question.
Yeah.
So they ask all sorts of questions.
The kids.
Yeah. So
for sure.
if I don't know, you're thinking about it, right? So,
For sure.
And then I text you and I ask you.
And then I just make up a bullshit.
Yeah.
So what's going on here, Stu?
Yeah. So so part of the issue last spring when we decided to graze far more animals than we had planned on is we had a pen full of heifers that, again, we were planning on selling in the springtime, but when we didn't really have a market for them, and we were kind of wanting to do something with our cow herd anyways. So we ended up keeping these heifers, and the whole idea was to run them as rough as we possibly could. And we put them out on the full season early July. We never gave them any mineral. We gave them salt, but no synthetic mineral or anything. We put them out on the full season in early July, put a bull out with them on July 21st, and then left the bulls there for 42 days. There's 128 heifers out there, and we had an 18% open rate, which again.
And what was it? The bull was how many days?
Bull was for 42 days, 2 full cycles. We had one bull for 25 animals. We were actually kind of hoping for
lower.
Yeah.
I know. And we're not going to get in that tonight.
No,
but Gabe Brown has an excellent theory about improving fertility.
Yeah. So it was kind of we're hoping now that we've got from this group that we'll have the most fertile animals of heifers. And anyways, yeah. So we ran them out there for 90 days. And we're quite happy with the way they work.
So you were talking about fertility, and I don't know the answer to this question, but maybe talk about herd health, the difference. You fed animals in a feedlot in summer, maybe just talk about getting them out on the land and plant diversity and moving.
Well, I mean, we'll get into that later with a few more pictures, but yeah, they looked, content. You go out there. The heifers, they looked, I would say, really good throughout the summer. No pink eye or anything. They always looked full. There was, I would say the best thing is they just were content at all times. They weren't falling around the quad.
They are almost indifferent if you were there or not.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, this is, we had a group of steers that were about 1,000 pounds. And again, I had done the feeding all summer with silage, and I did not want to do that again last summer. So we made the decision, right or wrong, to try and put them out on grass. And this is them out of my place. And I think one of the neatest things that I took away of the summer was, we put these animals out on some lush green grass or green feed.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually had a few people come over and tour through them. And everyone kind of made the same comment that they kind of expected just, not to walk behind them in case they coughed, sort of thing, because you're going to get covered in cow shit.
Yeah.
But every single cow turd that you found was just this perfect balanced ration.
And that is a beautiful cow patty. And I'm assuming this came off like the residue that we're looking at here.
Yeah.
I'll be honest as well. Like quite often we'll turn, if we get a year where there's lots of moisture and we really get plant diversity and maybe we don't have enough animals, we turn animals out early just to re-kickstart the photosynthesis engine. but we will get animals that are too loose. And Chris Ropers might be on here tonight, but he talks about that as well. Staging his full season cover for grazing in stages to try and avoid the loose off the hob. But I wouldn't scare people by grazing too early, because I mean, the best paddocks that regrew were the ones that were grazed early, and even some you graze them down to nothing, and it's just amazing with the vigor they grow back.
One of the happy accidents that happened last year is we had drill trouble, and I think you and I've talked about this a little bit, but like we were having a plugged run, not because of the Ford's full season cover.
Yeah.
It's definitely a drill problem. I will make that perfectly clear. But the cool thing that ended up happening was we had a full row where we had to go back and reseed. So we'd have rows at different stages.
Mm-hmm.
So when you ran the cattle over it,
they were eating
different
stuff. Yeah.
different things came back at different rates.
For
So
sure.
I don't know if we'll do it again that way. If we do, it'll be far more structured, but it was a neat way to, so you weren't so under the gun to get it just perfectly timed.
Well, there's a pretty good saying in regenerative ag where it's like nothing's a failure if you learn something from it. So it's like you did.
Yeah.
I know though, I'd like to avoid those as much
Yeah.
as possible.
Nothing
But
else
it's like,
to do. It was tough.
that's why I'm in my crappiest fields. It's like I need to learn something. So what's going on here, Stu?
So yeah, this is actually one of the learning things or pieces that we learned last year was we started grazing too late, and I think it was early July when we started grazing these, and we didn't hit it early enough to get that regrowth. I found it was far too mature, and we did get some ryegrass coming back and some vetch and some millet and some other things, but when we didn't get any rain after July 31st or whatever it was, we just didn't get that regrowth that we were kind of counting on, which was again, it was a learning experience for us. But when they were out there, we were expecting them to be there for 2 days, and they ended up being there for
Longer. Yeah.
4.
And that is the nice trade-off where it's like they get more out of each paddock. But Andy touched on something that was something I had never even really thought of, but I used to focus on I'm going to keep the animals there year round. So that's going to be their summer pasture. And it's just, I'm going to buzz them through. Once they get to the end, hopefully have good regrowth. And the first year we did it, that worked, but it was just like, we had good moisture. But I think probably a better strategy going forward is to be like, yeah, we're going to graze animals and we're going to improve this land, but it's nice. We can graze them across, rest our perennial pastures. And I mean, we talked about it earlier about what is that grazing in November and December worth when the silage pile's not going down or the hay stack's not going down. I mean, it's probably not worth 6 cents. Maybe it's worth 8 because we're not feeding them in the corral. They're out on the land. Animal integration, they're pounding that residue down, and all those minerals are staying right where the cow found them. So and again, the neat thing is, it's like, there's not a magic bullet for this. There's not one way to do it. It's not seed this date, spray 25 days later, 100 pounds of nitrogen, fungicide this date, and then pre-harvest glyphosate and combine. It's like, the neat thing is the management, no matter what management decision you make, just be observant, because you're going to have something to observe based on what you did.
Well, we talk about, it's not a Betty Crocker farming by any means.
No,
it's very much a learning, and that's what makes it fun too, right? It's kind of the path, right?
And to farms that haven't done it, it's like, because it sounds scary. It's like, well, I could screw this up. You might, on a paddock or two, but it's like it's either going to regrow or it's not.
Yeah.
So it's less being scared about trying new things and taking the plunge per se, but it's all going to be all right.
Yeah, and I mean, if it makes sense to you or me, it might not completely make sense to everybody, but it's about trying a few things
but the key is observe and learn.
Yeah,
and if you do that, don't worry about understanding, because it's definitely going to come.
Yeah, and again, this is just those the same steers out grazing in it. This is probably about 12 hours after turning them out there. They you let them loose, and they kind of just went out and knocked everything down, and then they would just pick and choose what they wanted. It was kind of neat to watch how if one would go after the barley and one would go after the ryegrass and next would go after the, just kind of sit there and observe. And one of the best, if I wasn't out there with my kids, I was out there after they were all in bed
having a couple beers.
Yeah,
That's
kind of enjoying the evenings.
Yeah.
We do get a lot of nice evenings in Manitoba.
Oh yeah, that's where I spend my evenings. Okay, you guys, if you got anything to add, Stu, have at it. We got loads of questions coming in. I'm just going to give 2 shout outs real quick. I cannot think of this guy's name. It's Clay something. Clay Conry. So Working Cows podcast, he does an excellent job. He has all the big name soil healthers, ranchers, gets lots of ranching for profit farms on there. So an excellent listen. It's not just cows. Some are talking about cover crops, some are talking about rotations, but a really great podcast. And Old Faithful, John Kempf, this week especially, he had on Jay Fuhrer, and he was talking about their Minokan farm, research farm, working in plant diversity in cover crops and starting to animal integrate. And from a chemistry and biological standpoint, testing standpoint, the differences in the land. It is one of my favorite podcasts, and it just came out last week. I've listened to it twice already. So if you haven't heard of the Regenerative Ag podcast with John Kempf, I cannot recommend it enough. It's probably going to be a little over your head to start if you're not really familiar with it, but like the rest of us, just listen 6 times and eventually it'll kick in. Right though?
You just gotta learn one thing an episode.
Exactly. And just keep building on it. So I am the head of this computer. So let me see if I can do this. If you guys want to unmute yourself and take your turn your camera on. Andy, you're already there. Guys, we'll start with I got to organize some questions here. So we'll start with maybe Stu and then Andy and then Rob, if you want to go, just talk about, I know Stu and Andy, this was your first year. So talk about something you're going to change for next year. And Rob, talk about something new you're going to try and implement. So Stu, if you want to go first, and then Andy, have at it. And then Rob, finish up.
I think the big thing that we took away was, the way our paddocks were set up. And my dad, he'll be on here, I'm sure, tonight watching this.
He is on here.
And he made the point the other day, and it was a good one. I can give him credit here. I won't say it in the shop tomorrow morning, so I better say it here. But the way we had our paddocks set up, they had to walk down a long, narrow path, and it kind of got beat to shit. And when it rained, I'm thinking we got a lot of compaction issues out of it. Mm-hmm. And when it didn't, there was a bunch of dust, and I think they got in their eyes. And where we had those long, narrow paths, pink eye was a big issue. And where we had more of a pinwheel setup, it was a non-factor almost. So I think that's, since you just mentioned it the other day, it's trying to figure out how to do something a little different there.
Andy?
Yeah, well said there, Darcy. It's you kind of stole my thunder. That's one of the ones for sure. Watering is an issue. I'm actually working very, it's good. I got another one, but we're working with the watershed district here too to try and get a bit of maybe a portable watering system going. Because yes, we had that. We're green to rotational grazing, and obviously it's so important with the full season cover. We got to get our watering figured out. And then the other one that I know we're going to try and change, Rob, I liked your comment. You kind of cleaned out the shed on the old seed. Well, that's exactly what I did for our inter-row corn seeding. I think we're going to dummy it down a bit. It's going to be corn, inter-row with hairy vetch, maybe one other, but fertility is probably the top thing. Fertility and trying to, and balancing the ration a little bit. That's going to be a couple of our key goals for next year.
Rob?
I guess what my biggest trial for this coming year is going to be interseeding, like a true interseed between rows on my cash crops. In the past, I've broadcasted or seeded all at the same time. And I'm going to try some winter wheat into canola, a winter wheat mix into canola. And then the plan is to not to graze that this year and let that come. And then next spring, seed in between the rows on the winter wheat, and then harvest that winter wheat in a timely fashion as a silage crop put up, and then have a cash crop in the understory there coming up ready to go, and trying to figure out a way to make that work in the northern climate.
Which is the biggest challenge? Sunlight, moisture. 96% of a plant, and we get less than everyone else. So we just have more challenges.
That's right. Yeah.
And I guess I'll speak to Stu and Andy's point where Blaine Jarvis, I mentioned him earlier, but he's a good friend of mine. I know Rob, he's a buddy of yours as well, and a really smart guy. Observed cows grazing lots. He says, I got to get my water closer to keep them on the paddock, because it does us no good if they're spending all day, around the water or in the shade, not on the field. Because really what we want is that urine and that manure going back in. So that's the first thing, is we're going to try and get our water figured out so we can, it might take a bit more work. I mean, it's less romantic hauling water than fencing through a full season, but it might just be what we have to do. And then the second thing, hopefully I don't talk too much about this, but we've actually been in contact with a virtual fencing company, just touching on how close that technology is to getting here. I think in 10 years, every cow is going to have a GPS controlled shock collar from your phone. We can keep those numbers, those stock density very high, and we can not only start changing our grain land, but we can start managing our valley pastures, our conventional pastures so much better. I think it's, to this point, it is the biggest missing link, and the factor that technology can change the most, in my personal opinion. But of course, I love this stuff. So Connor English, you're gonna get another hat, buddy. So I'll start. I'll ask the question and I'll preface it, because Connor and Ryan Boyd, who Ryan was maybe going to be on this panel, but it's nice to get some fresh blood. But anyway, Ryan, Connor's question is: when grazing full season covers, is putting the product through the cow more valuable for the following year's crop than trampling it in? And does this affect the seed-N ratio? Well, at our field day here last year, there was about 6 of us left, and Ryan Boyd and I must have drank 10 beers arguing about this. So Ryan's theory is, put it through the cow. We're still getting the root biomass. The cows, if we're managing it correctly, the cows urinating and defecating back on the soil. It should have no effect on the seed-N, other than the cow is going to pull some energy and some protein out of that feed. But like, she's giving back 80%. So it's a great argument. It's a great question. I do not know the answer. I think if you're grazing high plant diversity, you're winning no matter what. I totally get the argument about shaving it off, managing those animals so the urine and the manure is going right back, and to hell with the damn cover. With that being said, I've just grown to love a cover crop, that's this high with one strand of wire and a perfect layer of residue, and watching that residue break down, feed that soil biology. I don't know if anyone follows me on Twitter, but I was out digging around full season residue a couple days ago. So we're going to test this, and it's going to take a long time because soil tests are just a snapshot, but it is exciting to understand this information. So Rob, I assume you're the one with the next most experience, and then Stu and Andy, if you have anything to add. But I'll just repeat the question, Rob. When grazing full season covers, is putting product through the cow more valuable for the following year's crop than trampling? And does it affect our C to N, or our energy sources?
Yeah, that's a hell of a question.
I know, but he's already won a prize, so he's not getting the hat.
Okay, it to me it's going to boil back down to what we're trying to achieve out of that cover, and also how much available feed we have. If we've got, if we have ample, if feed is not in our mind at all, I'm gonna try and take whatever that number is, half, and then trample it, or take 30% and trample it, depending on and this, each field is different. And I was looking at the questions, I'm like, well, that depends. And I'm thinking every answer could be, well, that just depends. But it's
like an old lady's
it's one of those things. The only other thing that I will mention is that when I learned this winter, I heard Gabe Brown reference a paper that cattle manure is actually, they've done research into it, and it has a bacterial to fungal ratio of 1-to-1. And that's kind of what we're aiming for. And so, which also kind of connected some dots when you start thinking back to some observations and looking at some pictures. When you have that higher density and more cow pies per acre or per yard or per foot or whatever, you can see, we think it's just a nitrogen, or a carbon bump, but maybe there's so much more to it, I guess, is all it boils back to. But depends what you're trying to feed. Bacteria, trample down green plants. If you're trying to promote fungal growth, let that cover grow more mature, or let your perennials get more mature, and there'll always be a little bit of green in there, and you can lay that down, and so you switch from feeding bacteria to feeding fungal. And I mean, that's a Nicole Masters thing. We're opening up Pandora's box, though.
Man, and I wanted to know everything forever, and I've told this story before, but Chris Nichols says she graduated. She has a soil science degree. She thought she knew 10% of what was going on. Then she did a master's, and she was pretty sure she knew 5% of what was going on in the soil. She worked 20 years as a soil scientist, and now she knows less than 1% of what's going on. So I'm like, I know a common theme of me over the past winter. I talk about CDAN a lot, but I'm like, let's just feed the soil biology and let them be biology and manage these systems on their own. If I just give the correct energy source, I know those systems are so complex and in depth and so high in living organisms that they're going to take care of themselves. So I don't need to be a chemist or a biologist. It's just understand the damn plants. Sorry. Did that answer your question, Connor? Stu, why don't you talk about what you're trying to take and what you're trying to leave?
Well, yeah, I think it kind of, again, we're pretty new at this. Some of my observations, I guess, from last fall and this spring is we took a lot more away from, one field that we grazed compared to another. One of the big takeaways this spring was I went out and checked, the kind of armor and things, and there's a cow path coming back to the water. It kind of runs down a hill, and even with the little moisture that we had this year or this winter, we still had erosion going down that cow path. So I guess my thought is just, right knee jerk was, we need to keep that armor so we don't have that erosion. And that's just kind of where my head went with that.
Mm-hmm. Andy, I know you had a good observation about when you were moving, is you were just trusting the cows and trusting yourself.
Well, I'll answer with a quote from my late great uncle, Alvin Finley. He says, "If my foresight was as clear as my hindsight, it'd be a damn sight." So really, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Rob. It depends. It's what your goal is. I mean, our goal when we decided to do this was to try and do our best at at soil biology, and we've read, and what we've heard is that cow in there and that timing is everything for this. And like I don't have a straight answer because we're learning here too. But our goal was soil biology and get some wonderful things happening, and we succeeded. We were happy, and we were dry here doing it too. So
and yeah, those guys, those were all well thought out answers, and hopefully the farms that are watching understand where it's like you have freedom and creativity, but it's like, what are your goals and what are you trying to achieve? But I'm going to take the last word because it's our damn webinar, and that damn Ryan Boyd has made me think about this topic a lot. But really, whatever, we can talk about biochemistry and all that fun stuff. But really, when I make a decision, when I finally settle on one, especially for something like this, I just ask myself, is like, what was the system that was in place before we started farming here? And that was a ton of residue on the soil all the time, protecting it. So right, wrong, and different. I mean, you still got to pay the bills. The cows still got to eat. It depends on the year. So I know there's probably more questions as they roll in than answers. So yeah. So hopefully we gave some context, if nothing else. So maybe Andy, we'll start with you. I know you guys were new to it this year, but you got a pretty good idea going into next year. When do you decide when the first graze happens? So maybe we'll go Andy, Rob, and then Stu, you and I can talk about it. So going into this year, Andy, do you think you started grazing right last year? Are you going to go earlier or a little later? What are you thinking?
Yeah, so we started grazing. We seeded this on May 26th, and we started grazing the full season cover on July 22nd, I believe it was. Mother Nature's going to dictate that every year, at least what I can observe so far. We kind of made a decision that, I know you had made a comment to us, Joe, even talking to you, we better get at it. And we agreed with you. We made the decision based on a couple things. It had a lot to do with where our herd was at the time too, and ease of move was part of it. But we were dry, and I've said this obviously, and we made the decision that if we were going to get any regrowth as well, we wanted to get at it sooner than later as well. So that was a factor in our decision of when we started grazing for sure. Like I said, 20 days earlier, I didn't think this was going to amount to much, and wow, that symbiosis happened, and it was on fire, and we said, you know what, we're good, let's get at it. So yeah, I think just the general biomass was part of our decision making, and the weather. We wanted to see if we could get some regrowth too. Unfortunately, we didn't get great regrowth. And on that note, one of the species that we noticed come back the most was hairy vetch. Now, I don't know if it's a little more drought tolerant or what, but that was a win to us.
When it becomes September, October, November, that plant will not quit. It's just the best, isn't it?
Yeah, it was good to see.
Yeah. Rob, how about you? Grazing timing?
That all depends. I think Andy spoke to it well. I mean, one thing that I always think about, or it kind of helps us gauge when we're going to kick cattle into that, can depend a bit on what weed pressure we have coming as well. Not just to get some weed control with the cattle, right? And get everything kind of nipped off and set back, or even, you hit Canada thistle at the right time and you will kill it, or you'll really, really hurt it. But to achieve that with grazing is difficult, but that's something else. And it depends on the goal, like what's coming after that cover crop, what's the next year's cash crop, having a few things in your mind to help you make that decision. One thing I would recommend if you're doing a fair amount of acres with this program, or, is to stagger your seeding dates if possible. So you don't have 500 acres of cover crop that's all ready to graze on July 24th, because then you feel like a complete idiot. I may have done that. You know, like we're all still learning. I mean, been at this for a while now. I've got a great group of neighbors, and every year seems like it's like we're always learning, right? So it's I think that's where I'll leave that.
One thing I'll add to you.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Rob. One comment I'll add. You mentioned Canada thistle and weeds, and I'll say this: going into this full season cover, being a traditional conventional farmer, obviously minimum till is a big thing for us, but weeds was a big concern. And you know what? We were blown away here with how competitive the full season cover was with weeds. So that was another positive to it. You know, we had very few. Giant ragweed was about the only one that was really of a concern. Other than that, I do have a wild buckwheat concern on this field. Seen none of it. It was amazing how how the full season basically choked everything out.
I had a professor in university, Martin Entz, I talk about him periodically, but he said if you can grow wild buckwheat on a field really good, you know what you should be growing on that field? Regular buckwheat.
Yeah.
But it's like conventional wisdom says you're going to hit a wreck, but Mother Nature's trying to tell you something. Hey, I'm suited to grow this stuff. So, but it's a question we get asked a lot, Andy, is about weed control. And usually I half sarcastically say, I know my cows don't eat weeds either, but it's like, what's a damn weed to a cow, you know? And if it is a problem, I tell farms, it's like, you pack them a little bit tighter together on a weed patch and like watch them disappear, because like they can't help but trample those damn things to the ground, you know? So it can be, yeah, the cows don't look like 100-foot sprayer boom, but they can be.
Yeah, we got into it and we said, you know what? Hey, that's a plant too. That's adding to biology. We were happy with it. And the program that we had, it wasn't going to set seed anyway. So
yeah,
we were happy with it.
And I will talk on the benefit of residue as far as undesirable plants regrowing, weeds. If you lay that residue on the surface and just have the right plant species to regrow. So we like a ryegrass is a pretty common one. Rob, you were talking about it, but hairy vetch is another wonderful plant for regrowth. It's like, leave that residue on. We've got stored carbon in the roots, and the plants we want to regrow have the ability to, and the plants that if something sets seed, or if you're worried about weeds on the regrowth, that's where that residue, I mean, I'm sure, Stu, you could say the same thing, where it's like, it didn't really rain this fall, but like the plants that were coming were the ones that were intended to. There wasn't a weed problem.
No, it was all those other plants that, and getting back to the undesirable plants, but Andy and Rob were talking about, we missed our pre-merge burn. Germinating came up pretty quick. And since we didn't get grazed down soon enough, the pigweed and some other plants that we didn't plan on having out there, they were there and you could tell. But at the end of the day, they were knocked down. And after they were knocked down, it was only the ryegrass, the vetch, and some of the other.
And I'm obviously, if anyone's listened to these before, I'm trying to cut down on our glyphosate. So I used to really care about a clean full season cut, high plant diversity full season cut. I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but then like 2 years ago I just sowed into whatever was there, and I tell people, I'm like, I've never seen dandelions healthier in my life. They grew 5 feet tall. I've never seen a dandelion like that, and the cows love them. Really? So I was like, moving on. But this year we sowed into a green feed millet field, and it's pretty tough. When we were delayed seeding anyway, and it turned hot and dry, it's like I really screwed up there because basically it came up millet with some diversity, and that's not what we're after at all. Yeah. Like we need plant diversity.
I think, well, a couple of years ago when it was so dry in the spring, we didn't need to put a pre-merge on, right? Because
nothing was growing
anyways. But last year we had the moisture, and it was coming. So
We've got some questions. Rob, this might be one for you. I know like just because we're selling cover crop seed, we want farms to have the best chance of success possible. Actually, Stu, you've got a decent story about this. There's some questions coming in about sod seeding, full season cover mixes. Rob, why don't you start on it? And well, Stu and I both have experience on this as well. But yeah, just talk about your experience with it and how plant diversity reacts to maybe some tough seeding conditions.
Yeah, like for us, in the past, when we terminated perennials, that was done through tillage, and I still get goosebumps. But anyway, that's right, wrong, or different. That's what we were doing. And so we were actually, we had a decent cover crop after that. As far as the more regenerative model of just taking it out with chemical, I looked, my neighbors that was on, she jumped off, but they had sprayed it out and seeded into it. I think you want to be using a hardy rooted plant like an oat pea mix, so it would be better. Maybe some tillage rod or something like that. And then you want something that's, you'd like to keep your seed costs low. So if your expectations aren't met, at least it's not oh my God, I've got whatever dollars out there and I got like 3 leaves to graze for the cows, right? It's there's always that transition, and I've spent a lot of time this winter trying to figure that out moving forward for us, and I'm going to be trying some different things on it this year, but maybe it's a spray, seed a cover crop, let it grow up, get some good residue, and then flatten it down, and then spray it out again and seed it into a winter biannual. It's so dependent, but like a turnip, a small seed just doesn't seem to have enough get up and go, enough energy to get in there to get it to set foot, and moisture again comes back to moisture. But
moisture, yeah. Well, maybe I'll tell my sod seeding story. Like everything that we've talked about tonight, it totally depends. Like sod isn't sod. Alfalfa sod isn't overgrazed pasture sod for 40 years. So it really depends on what's there for root biomass, how much seed to soil contact we're going to get, and of course conditions, right? So we honestly, we have tried disc drilling into sod and have had zero success. If there's someone out there that is disc drilling into sod at species, I definitely want to hear from you, because we've tried it several times, right? You don't want to take a disc out and rip all this up. A hoe drill makes a hell of a mess. So yeah, we haven't had much success. So we tell people, like, if you're buying seed from us, we like even emergence, especially with plant diversity. Even emergence is just so key, because one species can take over another so easily, and then we're just not getting our desired results, which is stimulated soil biology from a diverse set of root exudates. But Stu, you did something this year I told you not to, and we had pretty decent results.
Which one?
So on the Hawkeye, you sowed full season cover crop with a hoe shank, and what 2 species came?
Forage peas and sorghum.
And it was like at a very low inclusion rate in the full season. That was basically, they were the only 2 species of plants that could break that sod layer. And I don't want people to rush out and go buy a whole bunch of sorghum Sudan grass, because literally that happened on Stu's farm, and maybe it got a timely rain, and maybe the sod was suited different.
That because it was, and I mean, I didn't include the pictures on the sides, because that was our biggest experiment of the summer last year. But yeah, the reason why that field was so, we didn't know what was going to happen, is because it's on that little sand pit, right? And we seeded that in the rain. We couldn't do anything else, so we were. And we wanted to take advantage of that.
The moisture, for sure.
And you were out there looking at it, and everything germinated.
Yeah, just couldn't push through that sod.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna do a whole. It's behind grazing full season cover crops. I guess we should be doing. Whoop.
Is it my wife?
Oh God, I hope not. Boy, we had 8 episodes, and that was the first time somebody called me during a webinar. That's not bad. Is that you, Andy?
That's a good idea.
Oh, now the phone's never going to stop ringing because there's lots of people on that have this number. Oh, thank God they're not leaving a message. So we're gonna trial this summer. We get asked a lot about, I got an old pasture or I got a hayfield that doesn't produce anymore. What species can I put in there to get growing? So I've got a pretty good idea of what we're going to be dealing with based on, we had a whole plethora of conditions this year that the full season went into. So it's nice because you have that much diversity, the cream rises to the top. So I would echo the same thing as Rob. Pick something that's going to have, lots of deep fibrous roots. So like I'm thinking oats, even though there was oats that didn't come. But yeah, just control your costs and your expectations, and just understand the conditions you're putting those seeds in. And if we get lots of moisture, hey, it might work out, but there's a decent chance it doesn't. We got a question about hairy vetch. I don't know where this rumor came from, and if you guys want to touch on it, Stu, I know you've grown lots of hairy vetch. Rob, I assume you have, and Andy, you've watched cows graze it. Asking if hairy vetch is toxic to cows. So 15 species blend. You watch the cows when you turn them out in that. They are looking for one thing and maybe not one thing only, but go back after 6 hours and they plucked every single vetch plant clean out of there. It is amazing. A cow has an invested interest in living, more of an invested interest than you having her live. So she's going to eat the things that taste good, she's craving, and are easily digestible. So I don't know where that vetch rumor came from. I think it's vetch seed.
I think it is.
Yeah. Somebody's cat. I always tell people, I'm like, somebody's cows died because of vetch. We feed alfalfa. We regularly lose animals to alfalfa bloat all the time, and then we still feed alfalfa. So the vetch thing. If you guys have another experience, but that's my experience, is cows trip over themselves for it.
Just to touch on it quick, we have and I was telling you, we have a pretty good regrowth on our vetch, and I'm pretty excited about it. So excited. I was out checking it the other day with the quad, and the cows, they were still feeding them all, and the plan was to graze that this spring, but instead of wanting to graze it, we were going to wait, and all those cows pushed through the fence and started grazing that vetch, and they've been out every day for a week because they kept pushing. And we can say that I need to put more power through the fence.
No, quit fighting nature.
Because I did put more power through the fence, and they kept getting out. And I've never been so pissed off as the last week when they were out on the vetch again. And not one of them died. So I mean,
I know that's cows literally, like in our corn vetch intercrops. Rob, I'm sure we have corn cobs in the field untouched by a cow, and they're out grazing hairy vetch between the rows. Like they crave the stuff. Their rumen can digest that so easily. That's why they crave it. I don't know, Rob, you got anything to touch on about the vetch?
Well, I think I've read that it's the seed that people say is toxic, and I mean hairy vetch is like Red Frank's hot sauce. I put that stuff on just about everything. I've seen cattle walk out into the snow as deep as they could trudge through, and then take their head like a hammer and break the crust, and then swing with their neck. I've got a video of that, and they there's beautiful standing corn right beside them, but they are like, when those pictures that I shared there, I have pictures with showing like a half-inch green stumps left. Like they were cleaning that, like vacuuming it off the ground. So I'm not afraid to graze hairy vetch. I'm not afraid to graze just about anything. So, but yeah, hairy vetch is I would not worry about it. No.
Okay, guys, we're vastly approaching 2 hours, which is what we like to keep this under, so everyone can do something before they go to bed. But normally I'll end with a question about this, but we're going to end with something a little bit more fun today. Connor English, you bugger, put your address in the comments. I guess we have it because you won a prize, but you won another hat. Very good question. So guys, Andy, we'll start with you because you didn't get in on the last one. I don't care if you talk about grazing full season cover. I don't care if you talk about corn veg. What's something, an idea you got in your head that you think 5 years from now you'll have fine-tuned, and it's going to be either a system or an intercrop or a crop you think 5 or 10 years from now you just think this is definitely going to work in our operation and our system. So Andy, you go first, then Rob, then Stu. We'll finish her off. So what are you excited about to try in the future, Andy?
Well, it's to try. I mean, I want to try it, all of it. I'm stoked about all this, and actually, my brain's full. This is the last damn webinar, to be honest with you. But I'll tell you, right here to my right is the crop plan, and probably one of the biggest goals that's on our farm and that I'm passionate about is our economics, and one of the big ones for me, and it strikes me the most from what I've heard and what I listen to, is synthetic fertilizer, and how in the hell I'm going to figure out how to reduce using it. And I would say we farm about 3,800 acres here, and I just did the math on how many metric ton of synthetic fertilizer I'm going to bring onto the farm this year, and I think to myself, I got to figure this out the smarter, not harder here, because that's a huge bill. And the future looks so bright with regen ag and cover crops and how we can integrate that. So, like I said, I'm hook, line, and sinker on everything that we're, all of these webinars that we've probably all had a piece of this winter. But for our farm, we're trying to figure out the sustainability long-term for, I'm just the greenhorn here trying to make some mistakes, literally. Like, yeah. I've never been more excited about making mistakes. Yeah, how bizarre is that?
Gabe Brown says, awesome. If you're not making 3 mistakes a year, you're not trying enough stuff.
Yeah. Like when we started this, I said, perfect. We can't do it wrong. We can't. Yeah. I'm excited to truly believe that.
Most of the interesting stuff that I followed throughout the summer is shit I put down knowing it wasn't going to work. But like sometimes I was wrong, and what a pleasant surprise that is.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. When we read the questions and stuff, it's all based on not knowing what to do. And that's what's so exciting about this whole movement, is that not knowing what to do is totally cool. Just do something. And it'll. Yeah,
hell yeah. Well said, Andy. That is very well put. Rob, what are you excited about? Keep it under an hour, eh?
Yeah. I think there's never been a greater time to be in agriculture, and I guess the economics as well, and really homing in the stacked enterprises system, and in the biological side, we make compost and teas and extracts, and it's just another tool, but really homing that system, and every time, like I was going through the pictures and I thought, boy, looking back at like 2015, I figured by 2020 I'd have it all figured out, or I'd be the system would be homed. So I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, when you ask that, like, man, we'll still be trying to home the system, and trying it. And that's the beauty of this. It's we're just going with observation and your footsteps in the field, and trying to figure that out. And it's going to be a great ride. And at the end of it, it's going to be the picture's already starting to show that things are definitely changing. And it's just, I'm excited about the whole tweaking that system, and and buying a farm in a warm country, so I can go there. So I can go there in the winter.
What do you think about South Carolina? I think that's where I'm going to go.
Okay.
Talked into New Zealand. If you want to go there.
I don't know about that one, but yeah, that's great.
Stu?
Oh, I was trying to think of different things to do with crop. I mean, obviously get more animals on the land, not just cattle. You really gotta, kind of a love for hogs right now. And
Same.
I just can't get
It's
them.
never
I
left.
can't quit them. And then there's the chickens and stuff. There's stuff like that. The grass finished beef stuff. I think that's kind of an exciting thing. There's different crops that I want to try growing to take off for harvest and to run through the animals. And I mean, that's a huge part for us is we have the livestock. So that's a big advantage. But, listening to these guys, and Rob again, it's just continuing to learn and try things. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff and having these conversations. It's a lot of fun, not just to be a part of it, but I mean, I watched every episode and, it was a lot of fun this winter. So
I guess I have the last word on season 1 of the webinars. I want to thank all the panelists that we had on. We should have been doing this sooner. Rob, you said you started your first cover crop in 2014, same year as me. I kind of got hooked, and I was the crazy guy in the area, maybe even the vast greater area for a long time. Sorry, I'm not going to talk about a crop. I'm going to get sentimental. But the difference from 2014 to I was a crazy person to what is transpiring and what is going on. And Graham Sate was on our webinar last Monday, and he talked about the soil health revolution. But it is. I mean, you guys, there are not many conventional farm webinars where we say the last thing is what we're excited about and our visions and our goals. And we talk about quality of life and working with nature and sharing ideas with one another. The thing I'm most excited about is it's not me trying crazy things on my farm and having to hum and haw what I did wrong or fight it. Well, now I have an entire network that I can lean on, that I can offer support to, that I can offer ideas, and what comes with this interest in soil health or regenerative ag or whatever the hell you want to call it is an abundance of ideas. And we're all okay with sharing ideas with one another, whereas conventional ag, we weren't, and we aren't, because we're competing, doing the exact same thing as our neighbors. We can't help it, but not necessarily think bad things for them, but there are competition on land and on certain markets. So what an unbelievable, refreshing time it is where these farms get together like this and get excited to share ideas and talk about the future and systems and planning and new crop ideas. I guess if I had a second answer, it is my brain has become obsessed with capturing sunlight, and the possibilities are endless. But like, how nice these webinars have been to get some not even like-minded people, just farms that have tried things, experimented, and are willing to talk about their experiences and thinking different. Well, we're going to look back on these ideas we talked about in 5 years, and they will be ancient. Because I know this because I looked at my ideas 5 years ago and most of them were bad. But like, how did I know any better? Like terrible ideas. But I survived. So as far as the future goes, you guys, it's the 3 guys that are on the screen right now. It's the 100 people or whatever we have listening, and hopefully they get an idea from Andy or something Rob said triggered in their head, or something Stu said about quality time with family and spending time with your kids. I mean, that's how we're going to improve our quality of life, is sharing information, being a support group. And that excites me for the future, because ain't nothing going to hold this movement back if that's the case. So you guys, you were an awesome panel. Great questions. I can't thank everyone enough. Season 1 is done. Yay. All we have to do is blend up like several hundred tons of cover crop seed. I got to calve 260 cows, and then I get to sow a crop. So like, these are exciting times. Anyway, Rob, Andy, Stu, thank you very much for being on. thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you next winter. Cheers, guys. Thanks again.
Thanks, folks.
Yep. Thanks. Have a good night.